Hold on tight, folks. Straight from Red Deer County, it's the Guillaume Clou Sans Tete experience. Your rugged, sharp, trusty headless nail is here to hammer home the truth.
Salut, mes amis, and howdy from the porch swing out here in Red Deer County, Alberta, on this crisp September 26th, 2025. The autumn leaves are turning gold faster than a politician flip-flops on a promise, and there's a brisk wind rustling through the cottonwoods like it's whispering secrets from the Rockies. I've got my mug steaming with a hearty brew, roasted up some of them Alberta broad beans from the garden, ground fine with a touch of dandelion root and chicory for that earthy, caffeine-free punch that keeps you sharp without the shakes. Tastes like pure prairie freedom, folks. No need for Ottawa's fancy imports. Welcome to another episode of Prairie Pulse, where we cut through the liberal cow manure with straight talk sharper than a barbed wire fence. Today we're diving into a barn burner titled, "We're Still in an Ice Age." Trump probably knows more than they do. And aren't those really smart monkeys impressive? So, saddle up, mes amis. Don't tell your dim-witted friends, but we're dropping some truth bombs that'll knock the soy latte right out of their shaky little hands. You ready? We're still in an ice age. We're still in an ice age. Yep, you heard me right. Technically, by the definition the scientists themselves use, them eggheads with their fancy degrees and satellite gizmos, because we've still got them massive ice sheets sitting thick on Greenland and Antarctica, holding enough frozen water to raise sea levels by a couple 100 feet if it all melted tomorrow. We're smack dab in the middle of an ice age right now. It's called the Quaternary Glaciation. Been going on for about 2.6 million years, and we're just riding out what they call an interglacial period. The Holocene, to be precise. One of them warmer spells between the big freezes where glaciers come rolling down like a freight train over half the continent. Scratch my head, mes amis, but if that's not an ice age, then I'm a city slicker in a suit. Now, you tell your dim-witted friends that and watch their eyes glaze over like a frost-covered windshield in January, because for them, history started about 5 minutes ago, right after their last TikTok scroll. They don't realize that just 20,000 years back, during the last glacial maximum, as the boffins call it, this whole country I'm standing on, from the Great Lakes up to the Arctic, was buried under a mile-thick sheet of ice. We're talking the Laurentide ice sheet, bigger than a bad dream, covering most of Canada and stretching down into the U.S. like an uninvited guest. The only critters hanging around were woolly mammoths tromping through the tundra, muskox chewing on frozen lichen, and a whole lot of permafrost that'd make farming Red Deer County about as feasible as planting crops on the moon. You want to talk about devastating climate change? Try scratching out a living under that kind of ice blanket. That's real devastation, folks. What we've got now? Mild winters, longer growing seasons, and prairies blooming like a wildflower quilt. That's paradise on a plate, and we're lucky to be in it. But see, the story they push on you, the one with all the scary headlines blaring about melting ice caps and rising seas, complete with doomsday clocks ticking louder than a grandfather clock in a thunderstorm. That one skips the parts where the Earth is actually getting greener and more bountiful. NASA satellites, not some backwoods rancher like yours, truly jawing from his porch, but actual high-tech birds floating up there in space, peering down with their fancy sensors. They show the planet's leaf area has shot up by a solid 5 to 10% globally in the last 20-odd years, from about 1982 to 2015, We're talking a greening effect covering a quarter to half of all vegetated lands, with forests expanding, crops thriving, and vegetation popping up where it hadn't before. And get this, a big chunk of that's thanks to rising CO2 levels, acting like a natural fertilizer, helping plants photosynthesize more efficiently without sucking up as much water. And you know where it's greening the most? At the edges of them dusty old deserts, mes amis. Places like the Sahara in Africa, the arid spots in the Middle East, and the outback in Australia. Why? Because when there's more CO2 in the air, up around 420 parts per million now, compared to 280 back in pre-industrial days, plants don't gotta open their stomata, that's them little pores on leaves as wide, to grab the carbon they need. That means they lose less water to evaporation, making them tougher against drought. So instead of deserts sprawling out like a bad rash, a lot of them are shrinking. Take the Sahara. Studies show it's shrunk by about 8% over the last 3 decades, with vegetation creeping in from the edges due to this CO2 boost. You'd think that'd be front page news, hollering from every rooftop. Hey world, the deserts are retreating thanks to plant food in the sky. But nope, doesn't fit the script of doom and gloom they're selling to keep the carbon taxes flowing. Now let me tell you something we ranchers and farmers already know in our bones, 'cause we've been doing it for generations. Folks pump CO2 into greenhouses on purpose, paying real money for tanks of the stuff to supercharge plant growth. It makes veggies grow bigger, faster, healthier. We're talking 20 to 50% boosts in yields for crops like tomatoes, cucumbers, and lettuce. They crank it up to 800 to 1,000 parts per million in there, and the plants lap it up like a thirsty steer at a watering hole. But apparently, when that same CO2's floating free in the atmosphere, it magically turns into poison that'll fry the planet. Go figure, mes amis. If you ask me, and heck, even if you don't, it looks a whole lot more like plant food. And what's the one thing we've got to do on this rock to keep billions fed? Grow food. More CO2 means more photosynthesis, more biomass, more crops to fill bellies from Alberta to Africa. That ain't exactly the catastrophe they promised back in the 70s and 80s. And here's a thought I'll bet your dim-witted friends have never chewed on, let alone swallowed. All them fossil fuels we're burning, oil from the tar sands, gas from the prairies, coal from the mountains, every drop, every lump, every cubic foot is ancient life bottled up. We're talking massive prehistoric forests, plankton blooms in ancient seas, whole ecosystems from millions of years ago. Think the Carboniferous period, 300 million years back, compressed into reservoirs under our boots. It's the Earth's savings account of solar energy stored up over eons. And when we tap it and burn it, we're releasing that carbon back into the cycle of life, where plants can grab it again and keep the green machine churning. It's not some evil substance conjured by the devil to punish us for driving trucks. It's the reason we live in this modern miracle, with heated homes through Alberta winters, tractors plowing fields without breaking our backs, and food trucked to grocery stores in Calgary and Edmonton without spoiling. Sure, it's finite. We can't burn it forever without smarter ways forward, but let's not pretend it's the root of all doom. Without it, we'd still be freezing in caves, scratching for roots. And while we're on the subject of food and surviving, Let's talk about adaptation, because that's the real magic of us humans. We're the primate that can adapt to darn near anything Mother Nature throws our way. Blistering cold, scorching heat, bone-dry droughts, raging floods, you name it. We've faced it down and come out swinging. That's why there's over 8 billion of us scattered from the Arctic tundra to the Amazon jungle, building cities, farming deserts, and engineering our way through whatever curveballs come. My cows out in the pasture, they don't adapt like that. They can't slap together a barn when the snow pile's high, or dig irrigation ditches when the rains fail, or design flood barriers when the rivers swell. But we can and we do, with our brains and our grit. Look at how we've turned arid spots like Israel's Negev desert into blooming orchards with drip irrigation, or how Alberta farmers use no-till methods to hold soil moisture during dry spells. That's human ingenuity, folks, smarter than a fox in a hen house. That's why I chuckle like a coyote howling at the moon when I hear some of these young bucks talking like the world's gonna end in 12 years. Or was it 10 now? They spout it like gospel from a pulpit, but crack open the history books and you'll see they've been hollering about the apocalypse since before I was knee-high to a grasshopper. Back in the 1970s, it was Global Coolin' Time magazine splashing headlines about a new ice age coming. Scientists warning we'd be 11 degrees colder by 2000 with famines and frozen ports. Then came acid rain in the 80s, eating away at forests and lakes. Sure, it was a problem, but we fixed it with scrubbers on smokestacks and international treaties. No Armageddon needed. Don't forget the ozone hole scare, with predictions of sky-high skin cancer rates and blind sheep in Patagonia. Again, real issue, but the Montreal Protocol phased out CFCs and the hole's healing up fine. And now it's climate doom with the same recycled panic. And yet here we are, alive and kicking, producing more food than ever. Global crop yields up 200 to 300% since the 60s. Living longer, healthier lives even in tougher spots thanks to tech and tenacity. Now I'll tell you who I don't have much patience for. These couch eco-warriors, the types who binge a couple Netflix docs, share a meme with a sad polar bear, and suddenly they're saving the planet from their basement sofa. They pat themselves on the back for sipping through a soggy paper straw or swapping to LED bulbs, while the real heavy lifting, the dirty, sweaty, back-breaking work is being done by farmers like my neighbor Jed, ranchers fencing pastures in the rain, and engineers drilling for cleaner energy. Those are the folks adapting on the front lines, switching to drought-resistant seeds when rains are spotty, building windbreaks against erosion, or using precision agricultural technologies to cut waste. That's where true resilience springs from. Not hashtags or virtue signaling tweets, but calloused hands and clever minds keeping the wheels turning. And so let's cut through the nonsense like a hot knife through butter. Does the climate change? Of course it does. It always has, swinging from ice ages to warm spells long before we fired up the first engine. Will weather patterns shift? Absolutely. Some spots'll get wetter, like parts of the northern prairies seeing more rain, while others dry out. That's nature's way, unpredictable as a bucking bronco. But does that spell the end of the human race? Not by a long shot, mes amis, because we're the smartest monkeys on the planet, and more than that, the hardest working ones. We figure things out, we innovate, we adapt faster than evolution ever dreamed. So when you hear politicians in Ottawa or jet-setting to Davos or wherever telling you the science is settled, that 97% of scientists agree we're doomed unless we cough up more taxes, just remember that number's been cooked, spun, and parroted so often it's basically a marketing slogan for the green agenda. Critics point out it's based on cherry-picked studies, like John Cook's 2013 paper that scanned abstracts and claimed 97% consensus on humans, causing some warming, but it don't mean 97% agree on a catastrophe or drastic policies. Plenty of scientists quibble over the details, how much warming, how bad the impacts, whether it's all bad or mixed with benefits like that greening. Science don't work by poll or consensus, folks. It thrives on evidence, debate, and proving stuff wrong. And the evidence, it shows challenges ahead, sure, but also opportunities, greener deserts, bumper crops from longer seasons up here in Alberta, and innovations like carbon capture keeping our energy strong, and maybe, just maybe, Donald Trump, for all the names they sling at him like mud on a truck, understands more than these so-called experts give him credit for. He's called climate change a hoax, peddled by China, pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Accord because it was a bad deal hammering jobs while letting big polluters slide, and just recently at the UN, he ripped into renewables as unreliable and pricey, saying the Earth started cooling after they stopped calling it global warming. He knows humans adapt. We build seawalls, drill smarter, and thrive without kneeling to globalist schemes. That's more straight shooting than half the suits at the UN telling us we're doomed unless we pay up for their green funds. Trump's push for energy independence, that's Canada first thinking. Keep our oil flowing, jobs booming, and let Alberta lead without Ottawa's chains. So don't tell your dim-witted friends this, folks. Don't tell them we're still in an ice age with ice caps holding firm as evidence. Don't tell them the planet's greener than it's been in decades, thanks to CO2 turning deserts into oases. Don't tell them CO2's plant food. Fossil fuels are life's ancient gift, and us smart monkeys are adapting just fine. Don't tell them Trump probably knows more than their echo chambers do. They won't believe ya. They're too busy retweeting panic. But you and I, we know the truth, scratching it out from the soil, and the truth is this: change is coming, like it always has, madder than a wet hen or gentler than a summer breeze. But change ain't the end. It's what we do best, with grit, gumption, and a dash of Alberta strong. What do you reckon, Mizzamies? Is this climate hysteria just more liberal cow manure, or can we trust our prairie smarts to adapt? Hit the replies. A, dang right, we're thriving in paradise. B, Premier Smith needs to bulldog Ottawa on this. C, share your own ranch wisdom. Spread this Prairie Pulse like wildfire. Link it up. Tweet at your MPs, and let's rally for real talk over fear. That's the pulse from the prairies today. Keep your boots dusty, your heart true, and your skepticism sharp. Until next time, this is Clou Sans Tete signing off.
That's the pulse from the prairies today. Keep your boots dusty, your heart true, and your fight strong. May some me stand tall for Alberta's way. This Clou Sans Tete signing off so long.